Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a massive July 2026 release that has honestly sent shockwaves through the machine learning and developer communities. We're talking about Moonshot AI's latest frontier model, the Kimi K3.
So here's the multi-billion-dollar question we've got to start with, right? Has the gap between the world's leading AI labs effectively closed? Does this new Chinese model truly match the cutting-edge US frontier giants like Anthropic and OpenAI? Well, to figure that out, we have to look past the marketing hype and get right into the architecture, the benchmarks, and, crucially, the economics behind this release.
And look, we aren't just talking about some minor, incremental update here. We're talking about a staggering 2.8 trillion parameters, trillion with a T. That makes Kimi K3 the world's largest open-weight AI model to date, officially pushing the open-source world straight into the 3 trillion parameter class.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for the explainer today. First, we'll meet the Kimi K3, then look at the tech behind the scale, pushing the benchmark frontier, real-world agent tasks, the price of intelligence, and finally, the AI survival game.
All right, Section 1, meet the Kimi K3, the world's largest open-weight AI model.
So this model launched on July 16, 2026, and right out of the gate, it brings some serious heat, like a 1 million token context window and native vision processing without even needing adapters. But here's what's got the research and MLOps community so fired up. Moonshot promised that the actual open-source weights for this massive model are officially dropping on July 27th. That is a huge milestone that opens up incredible opportunities for developers globally.
Moving on to Section 2, tech behind the scale, making 3 trillion parameters viable.
You might be wondering, how did they engineer a model this massive without the whole thing just collapsing? Well, they managed to get roughly 2.5 times better scaling efficiency than their previous K2 model by using a mixture of experts, or MO, architecture. Think of MO like a giant consulting firm. You've got an army of 896 highly specialized experts in the building, but you're not going to drag all of them into the boardroom for every single question, right? Out of those 896 experts, K3 only activates 16 for any given token. This keeps the whole operation incredibly efficient, giving it massive brain power while only using a fraction of the compute at runtime.
Under the hood, they introduced some really cool innovations, like Kimi Delta Attention and Attention Residuals to manage that massive 1 million token context window. But the absolute game changer for actual deployment? That's MXP4 weight quantization. Essentially, it's a super advanced data compression technique, and they used quantization-aware training right from the fine-tuning stage. This shrank the model's weight storage down to a highly manageable 1.4 terabytes. Meaning, you can actually self-host this 2.8 trillion parameter behemoth on a standard 8-node GPU cluster. No way could you do that without this compression.
Section 3, pushing the benchmark frontier. Let's see how K3 stacks up globally. Now, what's really interesting here is how tight the race has actually become. If you look at the independent BenchLM public leaderboard from July 2026, K3 Nest sits firmly at number 4 overall. With a score of 80.96, it is virtually neck and neck with the absolute top proprietary models from heavyweights like Anthropic and OpenAI.
But it gets even crazier when we drill down into specific categories. Check out these agentic and coding benchmarks. K3 surprisingly takes the #1 spot overall for SWE Marathon and Program Bench. This shows us some incredible dominance in sustained, long-horizon coding sessions where the model has to just navigate massive code repositories all on its own.
Which brings us to Section 4, Real-World Agent Tasks with Vision in the Loop.
Let's step away from those sterile benchmark numbers for a second and look at what K3 can actually build when left completely unsupervised for hours. This part of the technical report literally blew my mind. Over a 48-hour autonomous run, Kimi K3 designed a functional computer chip intended to run a nano AI model. It navigated open-source design tools, verified the timing closure, and hit a massive decode throughput in simulation. It's an AI model building hardware for another AI model, entirely by itself. And those autonomous workflows extend into some other wildly complex domains. It drastically condensed weeks of intense computational astrophysics research into just 2 hours, reading papers, writing 3,000 lines of Python code, the whole shebang. It also built a playable 3D browser game from scratch, using its vision in the loop to instantly see and refine the visual outputs in real time. The capability we're looking at here is just undeniable.
Section 5. The Price of Intelligence. It's time to face the market reality.
So the crucial point is, this staggering level of intelligence, it is absolutely not cheap to run. When you contrast Kimi K3's premium API pricing against its main domestic rival, Zhipu's GLM 5.2, a pretty stark reality sets in. K3's output costs are over 3 times higher than GLM 5.2. That is a massive, massive premium for any enterprise trying to scale an application.
And as an analysis by 36KR pointed out, this puts K3 in a very awkward position. Enterprise developers face a really hard choice here. They have to justify K3's premium price tag over much cheaper domestic alternatives. But on the flip side, if they're willing to pay top dollar, they might just opt for the established global brand trust of something like Claude or ChatGPT. Honestly, without an undeniably clear generational leap in daily utility, that premium price is a really tough sell.
All right, final section, Section 6, the AI survival game, funding the compute arms race.
See, Moonshot AI is currently facing an existential business challenge, and this K3 release ties directly into their aggressive fundraising narrative. Just look at these financials. Moonshot have raised roughly $2.5 billion over a recent 6-month period, targeting a valuation between $30 and $31.5 billion, with ambitions for a Hong Kong IPO. To justify those eye-watering numbers to the capital markets, their entire narrative depends absolutely on proving they belong at that global frontier table.
I actually want to read this striking quote from the 36KR report directly because it hits the nail on the head. For independent model developers, every flagship model launch is essentially a high-stakes gamble where they put their entire valuation, cash reserves, and next round of funding on the line. Talk about a precarious financial tightrope.
And this brilliantly illustrates the divide. Competing at the upcoming 10 trillion parameter scale, that is becoming a luxury reserved almost entirely for megacorporations. Tech giants backed by Microsoft, Amazon, and Google can just absorb the hardware costs via their massive cloud revenues. They could afford to have like 4 failed training runs happening simultaneously. But independent labs, no matter how brilliant their teams are, they usually only have the capital for one major bet at a time.
Then you have to add in the pressure of the local Chinese AI market, which has an inherent price ceiling built into it. As we saw with that GLM 5.2 comparison earlier, domestic developers simply cannot charge the sky-high API prices that OpenAI and Anthropic do. It completely inverses their cost-revenue structure when they try to push the frontier.
So what you should really take away from this is a tale of two realities. On one hand, Kimi K3 has brilliantly closed the performance gap for today's models through incredibly clever architecture and mod efficiency. But on the other hand, the raw compute and capital gap required for the next generation of models, that is actually expanding rapidly.
Which leaves us with this final lingering question. K3 definitely keeps Moonshot at the cutting edge, for now, absolutely. But as this AI arms race escalates to hundreds of millions of dollars and 100,000 strong GPU clusters, can any independent AI lab anywhere in the world survive the next round of this competition? It is going to be a fascinating space to watch. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and as always, keep learning,